Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, and welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name is Brian. Today we're going to be working on my 62 Chevy C-10. I posted a video a while back where I thought I had a starter problem, wiring problem solved, fixed, where it occasionally would want to start and not start, and you'd have to tap on the starter and it would start. Traces some dirty wiring connections, cleaned that up. It fixed it for a while, and then it went back to its same old game. And now I can't get it at all, even though it shows current going to the starter. So I replaced the starter solenoid because it seemed a little lazy, like it had a delay in it. So I replaced that. And it works great on the bench, but not in the truck. So I ended up getting some new parts. I have a new underhood wiring harness. This goes from the connector in the firewall down, well, it's the engine harness. So there's ground, temperature connection, and then these get out of the starter. I also got a new ignition switch and a lock cylinder because you don't need a key for this truck. The tumblers are screwed up, and I could not, typically, I'll show you when we get to it, but you can replace just the lock cylinder, and I could not get it out. So got the whole shooting match. So I got started a little later today than I wanted to, and it's starting to get pretty cold out here, and it's going to get dark soon. So I'm going to try to get this under the truck part put in and wired or connected. Then I'll get it down off the jack stands where I can get under the hood, and we'll work on that part of it. So when I got this truck, all this wiring down at the starter was pretty jacked up, so I did some repairs to it, and it's worked for 20 years until recently. So I cleaned some connections here and on the other side of the harness under the hood. This wiring harness in most places was like $100, which it pained me to spend that amount of money, but I don't really have a lot of choices. But I looked around and did some price comparison, and I found this one on clearance for like $50, so like half price. And I realized the reason it was probably on clearance or closeout is, I found a date on here somewhere. There it is. Apparently this was made in 2013. So I guess they're trying to clear some inventory, so lucky for us. Anyway, let me get that under there. This is the part we're replacing. Looks like it all pretty much goes down to the starter, and then two wires back there go around to the front. One's a temperature sender and one is an oil, no. Anyway, we'll go down and work on the starter part. I probably won't be able to show you much of that because it's really buried and greasy and dirty. So let's get that done. I got this truck like 20 years ago. All this starter wiring harness was all full of wire nuts and house wiring. So I had replaced all the wires that were jacked up. Obviously I didn't have some of the right colors because my purple wire turned to red, and this greenish kind of turned to blue. Anyway, it's held up that long. So I've confirmed all my colors, and now I can put this back in. The engine harness is in there. It has male terminals in it. The corresponding plug with the female terminals in it is not available unless you buy the entire underdash harness. So there's really only 5 wires in it. Fortunately for us, Al Gore invented the internet, and I was able to find out that the connectors they call, this type of connector, is a Packard 56 connector. So this connector goes in the other half of this terminal and is the female portion of it. I also was able to find these crimpers, which are supposed to apply the right crimp. So the plan is we'll pull this other half of this harness under the dash and try to de-pin it and get the wires out of it, and then recrimp all new terminals on it, put them back in the connector, and we should have good connection. Then we'll move up to the ignition switch, which also uses the Packard 56 style, and there's a large plastic connector on it. We'll replace them in there also because I'm not sure where our connection problem is, but my key doesn't work. Anyone can start the truck at this point. So I also got a new lock cylinder, and I could not get the old lock cylinder and the old ignition switch, so we'll have to replace all that. In order to access that wiring connector, I need to remove the heater box, I don't know, ducting. There's 3 small screws on this side I've gotten out, and a larger screw over here. I should just be stuck with some sealant and 1 cable. Oh, and there's our heater blower resistor. It looks like it popped out of the back. Right there's our connector. That's what we're gonna put new ends on. So I made a road map of what the back of the plug looks like. Here goes nothing. The wire looks to be in pretty good condition, so I'll just cut it back a little bit. Battery is unhooked, by the way. There we go. Now, that should still give us plenty of room to recrimp all those and go through the firewall. Now, let's see if we can get the pins out of here, or the terminals, whatever you want to call it. So I was able to get 2 out as a practice round. Basically, insert a screwdriver, press that tab down, and the insulation pulls off. There. The whole terminal comes out. And looks like we got the right ones. There's different sizes on here. This appears to be the correct one. I think I have it in the right direction. It's not real clear. So let's just pick one. See how he made out. Had this trouble on some practice ones. Need to kind of help it at the end. It crimps the wire all right, but not so much the insulation. That's all right. All we've got to do, get this thing, get them all crimped and get it back in the plug. So they're all crimped. According to our road map, from the back side, red will be the top middle. It should push in and click. Well, click as well as it can click. Next will be the dark green. Not really going and click, but it goes in and stays. Next to that is the light green. Blue is down on this bottom. I don't think it even actually does anything, at least on the other side of the plug. And then for the money shot, the purple one, which is the one we care about. Well, one of the more important ones. Okay. Now I can shove the grommet back through and I'll hook this back up. So after a little bit of struggling, I got the grommet back in there and I got this connected. Next we'll move over to the ignition switch. So you may notice there's no key in there, and of course the battery's unhooked. But you may notice also that this is not chrome, because when I painted the dash I masked everything off and somehow forgot that. So I realized it after it had a coat of primer on it, so then I masked it off. That's why it's primered. So let's see how we can get this thing out of here. Normally you'd put the key in and press a paper clip or something through one of those holes, and that would release the whole lock cylinder, but I could not get it to do that. I'm not sure what happened. So let's replace the whole thing. If that bezel will unscrew off there, which it does not look like it's going to do. That's the new switch. You would think that lock cylinder would be smaller than that. So let me work on this for a minute. Oh yeah, the ears are not allowing it to come off. Great. Didn't have much success with any other way, but a little screwdriver action. Need to do the trick there. There's the ignition switch. Guess I should have taken that out when I painted all that. Would have looked better, wouldn't it? So I think I have some paint. I might touch that up before I put this back together, and I'll strip all the primer off this bezel. Some of the parts appear to be the same. Figure we could probably check the wiring up to this point. So solenoid and battery, let's line them up here. Solenoid's the top, battery should be this big fat red one. So in theory, if I touch this to this, it should crank. We are in park. Alright, so I think our wiring is good up to here. Now, I need to figure out what wires I need to replace. I don't know if it shows up without a light, but it seems like I had to do some fixing on this before it was spliced into. So let me get a light and see what we need to fix in this connector. So there's the connector. I don't think you can buy that thing separate, but it looks pretty good shape. And really, 3 of the 4 wires look all right, other than this one hot one right there. A big fat red one, I guess you'd call it. And that is, that's the ignition wire, which is kind of odd, but anyway, I'll go ahead and cut that out, and I'll be able to replace, I think, just that one wire with that terminal. So I was able to get that chopped out of there. Let me go find some big red wire and make a little jumper, and we'll replace that. I'm not sure I'll ever get the right camera angle on any of this, but that's the wire we need to connect back to the auto parts store, and got some more wire, this little larger gauge than what I had on hand. So my plan is I'm going to cut this and solder that together, and then crimp the end on and put it back in the connector, since that one wire is the only one that's really problematic. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see any of this at all. Alright, that's pretty ugly, but I think it'll stay. Let that cool for a minute, then we'll slip some heat shrink over it and see how well that shrinks. I have varying results with that process sometimes. This is some old Radio Shack heat shrink, which kind of sucked back in the day. I think it's gotten worse, but that should protect it enough. So I was using my trusty old Blue Point Yak 10 butane soldering kit. That thing's pretty handy. I'd say it's probably paid for itself over the years. They make newer ones that are a lot larger than that. At least they make newer ones you can get at Lowe's that are a lot larger than that, but that is pretty handy. That's probably the best crimp yet. Now, let's get this jammed back in here. All right. Go ahead and get the ignition switch plugged back in here. Turn the right way. There's a flat on it. And I lied to you, I did not have any more of that paint, but I did clean everything off this bezel. That thing sticks through quite a bit. That's going to be kind of ugly. What if I'm missing something? So there's the difference. This one has these standoffs that hold it from jamming all the way through the dash, like so. So it only goes through that far. The new one does not, so that's going to kind of look bad. The length looks the same. I'm going to see if I can find something to put around there to space it out. So these appear to be the same length. I just need to have about about that amount of threads to show through. So I need to find something to fill that distance. Found a metal pipe coupling, and I might be able to hog some of the threads out of there and cut that, but I also found a plastic conduit coupling, which might be easier. I just need to shorten it and then cut the stop out of the inside. So let me mark that. So I was thinking I could take a hole saw and cut that stop out, but the next size up hole saw I have is too big. So we'll try this smaller one, which is a 7/8, and maybe you can chew it out with that. Here goes. That actually works remarkably well. Until the bit unscrews itself. That'll work. Now, just need to cut it. A little bit of further refinement. Let's see how that works. Looks a little better. I'm going to scratch something doing that. Probably going to scratch something doing this too. tight enough. If I remember right, just shove this thing in there and it kind of locks in. All right, there we go. Now it won't come out. There he is. All right, there's accessory. I guess that's off. That's run, and there's start. Not quite like it was before. Let's see if it'll run now. Battery's connected. Should be running because shows we have fuel. And this is probably not going to start because it has been quite a while since it's run. All the fuel is probably drained back to the tank. Alright, at least she cranks. Look at the starter arrest. Maybe find the battery charger. I got tired of waiting, so I gave her a little splash of fuel down the carburetor. Battery charger's on it. Give her another splash. Let's see if we can get some fuel pumped up by itself. This is a 700 R4 transmission, so it actually has 4 gears. There's third. When we get to about 45, it should go into overdrive or 4th gear. locks up and sometimes doesn't, but it's not a real nuisance. Sometimes you have to get it on a little bit to get it out of fourth, but it does pretty well. Also has the full gauges, which is apparently not very common. Instead of idiot lights, you have a temperature gauge, battery gauge, and oil pressure gauge. This gauge cluster was shared with bigger trucks, so some of them would have had a tachometer over here and possibly an air pressure gauge over there. That tachometer is pretty cool, but not very many of them had it. It's pretty hard to find. So I have the old JC Whitney one, which works fine. It kind of fits perfect right in there. The only thing it blocks is a little Chevy emblem down there on the dash. Another thing that's pretty cool with the headlights on, the high beam indicator is right there. It's a little bow tie, red bow tie on the dash. Now for the true test, we'll start again. And I can actually take the key out and take it with me. You can't start it without it. Awesome. While we're here, I'll go ahead and top off the battery. Since it's a little weak and she's getting a little old, there's how to pretty much replace the entire starting circuit in your 62 Chevy C-10. Thanks for watching. See you next time.